High fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye home. Don Mattingly. Tucker waits one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of here.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters, covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined by tag team partner Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up? What's up? We're back on our team-centric episode tonight, talking all things Bravos. So for you Atlanta fans, hopefully this scratches an itch for you guys. I'll start off with a fact here, a little interesting bit of history. Last night, or Saturday night, depending on when you're listening to this, the Braves became only the third team in Major League history to win a game in which an opposing player hit 4 home runs against them. Bob Horner back in 1986, Ed Delahanty all the way back in 1896. So history was made. Shout out to Eugenio Suarez in a losing effort for the Diamondbacks.
So no warming up the bullpen here. Today we're hanging out with Ben Weaver, someone who's become a really trusted voice when it comes to covering the Atlanta Braves. You can find his work at Skipper's View and Tomahawk Talk, where he's breaking down everything from big storylines to the little details that only real fans will catch. Ben's got a great feel for the team, not just what's happening on the field, but energy and stories around. You can follow him on X at Weaver_cards for his Braves updates, analysis, and plenty of smart takes. We're pumped to have you with us today, Ben. How's it going?
Hey, man, it's going really good. I just got back from playing a men's league game, so I know I'm probably not going to be able to walk too well for the remainder of the week, but, it's going good.
Oh, well, as Devin said before, we're pumped to have you on, and we said off air a little bit that it is the perfect time to have you in to all the things about the Braves. You guys have been at the top of the conversation in the baseball world, and we're really excited to dive into it. But before we get into all of that, can you share a little bit about your background? How did you first get started covering the Braves with Skipper's View and eventually Tomahawk Talk?
Yeah, so obviously I grew up playing ball. I played a semester of college ball at Armstrong State University in Savannah, Georgia. Blew up my arm, couldn't play for since then. So stuck to kind of men's league. But yeah, I just decided, stats have always been kind of a big thing to me. So I started researching, on Baseball Reference, Fangraphs, Savant, all that kind of good stuff, and finding some interesting things. Decided I want to start writing about it, and reached out to Dean at Skipper's View, and he was gracious enough to bring me on the team. And I'm not doing as much writing right now, but I do post, my stats and stuff that I find on Twitter, and do the Tomahawk Talk podcast with Jeb Mays, and you might know the other guys as Disgusting Braves Homer and Michael Harris 2's Headband on Twitter. All three really great guys. We are trying to build that podcast up, and it's all things Braves. So we kind of have to be dialed into team to know what we're talking about.
And as far as Skipper's List, I mean, that's really grown into a big team of great people, a lot of great content. I'm sure a lot of our listeners probably follow at least some of those guys there, but if you don't, give them a follow. So as far as getting into the Braves, we're not going to bury the lead here. This story is about a week old, but I feel like we have to touch upon it with you on here. Steve and I talked about it at length during episode 78 last week, but I need to hear a Braves fan perspective. I'm a Mets fan. Steve's a Yankee fan. So, we're looking at this from New York. The Jared Kelenic-Ronald Acuña tweet, Brian Snitker acting like he didn't see the Kelenic not hustling situation. Now that some time has passed, your thoughts on the situation?
Everybody's in the wrong in this situation. Literally nobody. The only person who kind of handled it right was, in my opinion, Jared Kelenic. Just the way that, he was said to be going into Brian Snitker's office the next morning, like in tears, apologizing to Brian Snitker. Snit saying that he didn't see it or whatever. And then, the baseball writers too, calling Snit racist and all this other stuff. Like all that stuff is just blown way out of proportion. Like all they had to say was, yeah, Kelenic should have been benched. That is, Snit should have said, okay, that's my bad. One of the coaches, even if he didn't see it, one of the coaches on the bench should have told him, like, hey, Kelenic got thrown out at second. because he wasn't hustling out of the box. Like, that's somebody's job in that dugout to tell him that. As far as Ronald goes, yes. Can he feel that way about it? Absolutely. Nobody's saying that his feelings are invalid on the situation. Should you handle this behind closed doors? Yeah. You shouldn't be tweeting that on your timeline when you are somebody like Ronald Acuna Jr., who is a superstar in this league, regardless of what's going on with him, with his rehab and all that kind of stuff. So, in my opinion, everybody's wrong, but I'm hoping that it's kind of just blowing over at this point. It seems like nobody's really talking about it as much now. Um, but, we'll see. Jeff Francoeur blew it back up, so who knows? Maybe somebody else will.
Well, that was going to be my follow-up. Like, I feel like a couple days passed and it started getting a little quieter, and Jeff Francoeur goes on a radio spot and absolutely buries Ronald Acuna Jr., like the superstar of the Braves, reminding everyone that they won without him, which we all know, but, probably didn't have to poke the bear at all. Was there anything Francoeur said that you liked, or was it kind of a eye-roll situation where you just wished he would have kept his mouth shut?
Again, I'm not the type of person to say that, somebody's feelings are invalid about a situation. I think whatever Francoeur felt, like, he has more experience in a big league clubhouse than I will ever have. So the stuff that he says, like, could he have said it better? Probably, but the last thing you want to do is bury the superstar player of your team. And I haven't seen Frenchie call a game this year, so I'm not sure if he's still technically a announcer for them. I know that he said that he wanted to take a step back because his kids are growing up. He wanted to be there for his kids, all that kind of good stuff. So I'm not sure if he's still technically with the Braves organization, but even so, somebody who's been a staple in that organization for the past, I don't know, 20 years at this point, you have to understand how that comes across and who that's going to piss off and who that's going to alienate in the clubhouse. And one of the last people you want to do that to is a Ronald Acuna Jr., who is literally the best player to ever put on a Braves uniform. Well, take that back. The most talented player to ever put on a Braves uniform. I'm not going to say he's the best, but the most talented.
Yeah, Frenchie said that as well. And, Devin and I went back and forth last week talking about this, about it. Say Frenchie was a part of the broadcast and he was calling games on a consistent basis. What is the role of the broadcaster? Should they be a guy that's partial to the Braves, or are you of the belief that you want him to speak his mind, although maybe we disagree with it sometimes?
I was listening to y'all last week actually, and I really liked the takes that you guys had on that. But everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but at the same time, you shouldn't go on a radio broadcast in literal state or the city that the franchise is in and blasting the best player on the team. Like, in my opinion, that's just not something you should do, whether you work for the organization or not. People all the time talk bad about the players, and, like, we as fans, we talk the most nonsense about some of these players, and none of us can do what they can do on a nightly basis. Jeff Francoeur played Major League Baseball, but he could also not do anything of what Ronald Acuna is doing. So, I mean, who is he to say any of that he was going off about, saying that they won the World Series without Ronald or they went to the playoffs? Like, that's just nonsense, in my opinion. If it wasn't for the first half of 2021, Ronald Acuna, where he hit 24 bombs, and I forget what his batting average was, but I know he hit like 24 homers that year. If it wasn't for that, the Braves might not make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what are you talking about in that sense?
It's a fair point, and the conversation will continue, but let's take a step back and look at the Braves offseason as a whole. It was pretty quiet winter overall. I mean, Jerickson Profar being one of the late additions, and now, of course, he's serving that PED suspension. Hindsight's always 2020, but looking back now, how do you feel about the way the Braves approached the offseason heading into 2025? Did they do enough? Were they too quiet, looking to build upon what the season should be this year?
I've talked to so many people about this too, and it's just been an ongoing conversation even to now. I don't think they did enough, but I'm not necessarily sure who to point the finger at in this situation, because if it's ownership not wanting to spend the money, well, you can't really fault Alex Anthopoulos, the GM, for not going out and doing more. But if it's Alex Anthopoulos not wanting to spend the money that he's given, well, then you can fault him, but not necessarily his fault that like somebody like Tanner Scott, who they gave a contract offer to, didn't sign with the Braves, and he chose the Dodgers over them. So there's a lot that they could have done. Like the bullpen is still shaky. The starting rotation with Reynaldo Lopez going down early on, that's just brutal, to the rotation that already needed a starter. So they could have done more. Obviously, Profar, nobody saw that coming. I mean, 80-game suspension and playoff suspension, like nobody could predict that. So the fact that the one big signing that the Braves did have got popped for PEDs, like you just kind of have to roll with the punches on that one.
Yeah, I think a lot of the conversation last year, everyone was looking like maybe he put it together. Obviously, a high prize prospect for a long time, and watching him in Texas and then San Diego, all the good vibes are there. And our good friends over at Divine Sports Gospel, they talk about vibes over above replacement, and Profar sort of represented that. And so everyone felt good about him going over to the Bravos and hopefully continue what he did. It's unfortunate, but we'll continue that. Devin dropped out for a sec, but you and I will continue the conversation. And the beginning of this season did not start off the way you wanted to. 0-7. We all saw the stat about no 0-7 team ever making the postseason. Of course, more teams now make it nowadays, so you can look at the silver lining there. But putting yourself back in that spot when they started 0-7, how are you feeling about the Braves? And now the time has passed and they've sort of righted the ship for the most part, getting some wins in that column. Has your feeling changed at all on this team?
Yeah. I mean, you could just listen to our Tomahawk Talk episodes, from the beginning of the year to now, because we generally release on Mondays and then the day after a series ends. But you can hear like the frustration in our voices and the way that the guys were talking about that. It's like this team is way too talented to have gone 0-7, regardless of where they started. Did they have a brutal start to the schedule? Yes, they had the Dodgers and the Padres, who are two of the best teams in baseball. But there's no reason they should have gone 0-7 on that road trip. But now that they've started to put it together, they lost today, but they won the series against the Diamondbacks, and then they've won the past couple of series that they played in. So like we're on the right track. If we can
Sure.
finish April like right at 500, awesome. We'll go from there. New season starts in May 1st.
Do you find having the platform of the podcast therapeutic as a fan to have the space to vent and have those frustrations be released? Because we all have friends, you have, text threads, obviously baseball fans are passionate, but having a microphone in front of your face, especially on a daily basis, when you're doing a lot of post-game reaction, that has to feel a certain type of way for you, right?
Yeah, it's fun. This is the first year that we've been doing it, so like, it's different for sure. But being able to sit there and talk about the Braves just with three friends, basically try to make it as close to like a conversation that you would have with one of your friends about the Yankees.
Right.
It's just kind of like that's what we want to make it, and it relieves a lot of frustration because I can sit here and I can be like, well, you know, so and so struck out 3 times today and twice with the bases loaded, and I can relieve some of that frustration by talking about whatever, you know what I mean? And even then, if they're doing good, we can do the opposite. Like, hell yeah, man. Like, sorry if I can't swear on here,
No,
but
you can. Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, it's just saying something like, hell yeah, man. Like, Matt Olson hit a grand slam today or whatever. Yeah, that's fun as a fan to be able to sit there and talk to your friends about that for an hour and a half, whatever.
Oh, for sure. And Devin's back in here. Devin, we did talk about the 0-7 start. Did anything you wanted to ask about that when we were talking about just the slow start and really where the Braves started this season, similar to your Mets last year when you guys couldn't get up off the mat?
I mean, you may have already talked about it, so if you already addressed it, I don't want to rehash the same thing for people listening. But in my shoes, when I'm seeing all those stats about no playoff team or no team has ever started 0-7 and made the playoffs, my first thought was like the Braves are different, and also way more teams make the playoffs now. Is that something you guys already discussed, or is that something to comment on?
Yeah, I think the Braves still have a good chance of making the playoffs. I don't. The only issue is how the NL East is just such a juggernaut. I mean, as much as it pains me to say, the Mets are just kicking ass right now. And then the Phillies are doing well. I think they're right at 500. But I mean, the Mets have the best record in baseball right now. So the fact that the Braves started 0-7, and they're chasing down the team with the best record in baseball. It makes it a tough uphill climb. The silver lining, though, is like you said, there are more teams in the playoffs now, and I think the Braves have the talent to be able to do it. Matt Olson is heating up. Michael Harris is heating up. Austin Riley has started to heat up. The Braves offense, going back to, I can't remember the actual date, but like the day after they got their first win, they're one of the top 5 offenses in baseball. So they're doing the thing again, and it's a joy to watch.
I have that tweet right here that you're probably referring to. Grant McCauley writes, since April 4th, the Braves, which was the Braves home opener, just like you said, Atlanta ranks first in slugging, second in average, third in home runs, fourth in WRC plus, fifth in on base percentage. And the offense owns the third highest FWAR in baseball in those 19 games at 4.6. They're 12-7 over that stretch. Now, that could be updated. I'm not sure if that tweet was from a day or two ago, but yeah, I think everyone is sleeping on them just because of their bad start. If you go back and check out what they've been doing recently, I think people would change their opinion a little bit.
Yeah, looking at the offense, just like they were showing that first week when they went 0-7, I think they took a picture of the scoreboard out in the outfield, and the numbers weren't going to be that. Those names don't vibe with. And Devin and I said this on we look on this podcast. Look at the back of the baseball card. All those players are way too good to be held down for that long. And I'm sure you guys felt the same way, but you guys are doing a daily podcast. So I'm sure that frustration was like, dude, we need this to get going sooner than later.
Yeah, we and we've talked about it too. Like a player like Matt Olson, for instance, the 3 years that he's been with Atlanta, his um, um, fly ball rate, I believe. No, I'm sorry. His hard hit rate has been like over 16%, which, God, I'm sounding dumb now. I can't even remember what the actual number was, but anyway, the ground ball percentage has gone way up. Like it's at like 58% or something crazy like that.
Right.
And then launch angle is what I'm thinking about. I'm sorry, 16.1% launch angle, and it's all the way down to like 6.7. So it's very difficult to see the past 3 years consistently be 16.1% launch angle, and then this year plummeting 10% and being like, well, that's just who he is now. The back of the baseball card speaks, and I'm a firm believer in that. I've always been a firm believer in that, and I think that a player of his caliber, or any of their caliber, Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Marcell Ozuna, like they're going to hit their 30 homers. They're going to hit, their 90 to 100 RBIs. And Michael Harris is going to hit 280 probably, which is what he's done consistently in his career. And Ozzy will figure it out. Like, I'm not worried about them as much. The pitching, however, is a different is a different story a little bit. They're bottom third in the league in most major stats for pitching wise, and Chris Sale still is getting shelled out there. His command's still a little bit off. Spencer Schwellenbach has been good, but kind of shaky his past couple of starts. And then Grant Holmes has been good for a fifth starter, but like we need Spencer Strider to come back and be Spencer Strider. Coming back for one start and getting on the injured list again is very detrimental to Atlanta's pitching health.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the names. That was the next follow-up question. Really, we all love the offense. There's no doubt about it, but the pitching does feel shaky. You mentioned them by name. Spencer Schwellenbach looks like a stud, but Chris Sale looks diminished. Reynaldo Lopez is out. Strider is on the IL, as you mentioned. But I guess to follow up on it with the bullpen, Raisel Iglesias has already allowed 5 home runs in just 10 innings this season, which is actually more than he gave up in 69 in the third last year. So if this keeps up, do you see Snitker making a change at closer, or do you think they'll ride it out a little bit longer with Iglesias?
Knowing how Brian Snitker operates, I think he's going to ride it out with Raisel Iglesias for as long as he possibly can. Snitker has been infamous for riding with his guys for as long as humanly possible, like to the very end. And I think Raisel has become one of those guys who, over the course of his Braves career, has been a top 5 closer in baseball. He doesn't get talked about as much as like, Devin Williams or, Mason Miller or whatever. But his stats over the past few years have been proven to be really, really good. And I think that's going to keep Brian Snitker in the mindset like, this is our guy. This is who we're going with. And the fact that they don't really have anybody else who could take that spot because there's nobody else who I would trust really with the ninth inning. Maybe Daysbel Hernandez, but even then, like, I don't know if I fully trust him with the ninth inning yet.
Let's go back to the offense real quick here. We mentioned Matt Olson, who I think we're going to talk about a little more, but Austin Riley, it seems like he goes right along with the Braves' recent upturn as far as how they're doing now. Over the last 2 weeks, he's really turned it on. 386, 4 home runs, 13 RBIs, 189 WRC plus. Now on the season, hitting 423 with runners in scoring position, which is impressive. 10-5 in that time. That may be a little outdated stat now, as I know they took a loss today. But do you see him as the most important piece on this offense without Acuna in the mix, obviously?
Yeah, I can really see how that goes because Marcell has been absolutely crushing it this year. Marcell Ozuna, his stats have been really, really impressive. Matt Olson still has yet to figure it out, but I think Austin Riley is really the engine that makes this train go. When he's going good, obviously you can see it in the stats. When he's going good, the Braves are going good, and we need him to continue to do good. The only problem is, like many Braves fans on Twitter have said too, the issue is these guys go on prolonged slumps, and several of them go on prolonged slumps at the same time. And when you do that, you're not going to succeed. Whether it's Ozzy Albies and Matt Olson going on a slump, or Marcell Ozuna and Austin Riley going on a slump. Like if you have multiple guys who are your big boppers in the lineup going on slumps like that, any lineup's going to struggle. Whether it be the Mets and if Juan Soto and Pete Alonso stopped hitting for 2 weeks, very, very good chance that they're just not going to win a game for a week or two.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the turnaround and we discussed it a little bit before when they started 0-7. The expectation was they would eventually live up to the back of the baseball card. But being that you do watch them day in, day out, we're looking at the box score a lot of the times, maybe the highlights on Instagram, et cetera. But what has been the biggest difference you noticed with this team since they started and the way they're playing now? Like, is there something you can point your finger to? Is it just riding out the slump that they had started, unfortunately, 0-7 for the beginning of the season?
I think it's just riding out the slump, to be honest with you. I mean, these guys, like at the beginning of the year, the Braves lineup through and through were hitting the ball hard. I mean, everybody was just crushing the ball in Los Angeles and San Diego. But the problem was it was going right to somebody almost every time they hit it. So that's baseball. I mean, that's going to happen regardless of how old you are or what league you play in, whatever. And a guy like Matt Olson has cut his strikeout rate from last I checked, it was like 24 or 25% usually to this year it's around 17 or 18%. And he's raised his walk rate, and that's been across the board. Marcell Ozuna has the most walks in March/April in Braves franchise history now. He passed Kelly Johnson in 2007 the other day for that. So these guys are taking their walks, except for maybe Austin Riley. He's not really walking that much. But Ozzy, who is infamous for not walking, is walking more than he was. His walk percentage is up to like 9 or 10%. And so that's a huge improvement. But you just had to ride out the slump and ride out the adjustments that they were trying to make.
Let's go back to Matt Olson. You highlighted a few things that we were going to talk about as well, but he as a whole is fascinating. If you go to his Baseball Savant page or his Fangraphs page, like it's a curious case. You mentioned 3 years in a row, a 16.1 launch angle. And some people might say, so what? Well, 8.7 this year, pretty big difference. And then you try to dig in more and see like, well, all right, well, what else is going on? And like you said, like strikeout rate is down. Other stats are way up in a good way. Like there's a lot of good on his Savant page. The launch angle is the one thing that sticks out. But like if you look closer, 54 home runs back in 2023, obviously an unbelievable season. He's hitting 228 with 4 homers right now, still early. The interesting part to me is his expected slugging sits at 583, which is actually higher than his expected slug back in that 2023 year when he hit 54 home runs. His actual slug this year sits at only 402. So like talking about that, getting a little unlucky, clearly there's something to it with Olson. And that brings me back to the launch angle. Like it has to be about that. My wonder, as someone, again, who is not maybe watching the Braves in the post game and the pregame day in and day out, has this been something he's talked to the press about? Have they asked him about it? Have you heard him actually acknowledge it? I would love to just know if this is something where he was actually trying to mess with his launch angle and it's just kind of backfired on him.
I'll be completely honest with you. It has been probably over a year since I've heard Matt Olson say a word. That man is usually one of the most quiet people. He doesn't really give too many press conferences. He doesn't really talk to the media that much. But I mean, it's something that I want to say some Tim Hires, who was the brand new Braves hitting coach, has talked to all the guys about. Like, you can see the adjustments in their at bats. You know, they're having good at bats. They're taking walks. They're watching close pitches. Kevin Seitzer, who was the Braves hitting coach before Tim Hires, if you got a first pitch fastball, if you didn't swing at it, then you were going to get your ass chewed. And now it's the complete opposite. You take the first pitch. I don't. There's hardly anybody besides maybe Ozzy Albies, and Michael Harris who are swinging at the first pitches. And besides those two, Marcell Ozuna, Matt Olson, Austin Riley, they're getting pitched around a lot. And they're taking their walks and they're not really striking out as much. I mean, Austin's still up there a little bit, but Matt Olson, Marcell Ozuna, I mean, they're not striking out. And I mean, that's a good thing. Obviously, like you said, it's a great thing. But the launch angle, I honestly could not tell you what the biggest difference is, why they're hitting the ball directly into the ground. But it could be a philosophy thing, could be a Tim Hires thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you'd imagine eventually it would work itself out because we have to look at the aggregate. Like that jump off, you don't see it from year to year, could be cut in half. Like Devin was saying, you were saying, even if it decreases, if we're seeing a different approach, you would think the decrease wouldn't be half. So we have to see where he's at maybe sometime in July if we can get that number back up. But it is a curious case, as Devin said, because Olson's one of those dudes. I mean, 54 home runs back in 2023. This is a power hitter. This is a slugger that the Braves rely on. And let's be honest, man, if he's not going, the rest of the team's going to struggle.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's been a lot of talk about how much the Braves might be missing a strong personality like Ron Washington. And how could you not think about this dude, former manager in the MLB, has gone off to greener pastures to try his hand again, to sit at the top of the seat here. He's not in the dugout for the Braves. From your perspective, do you think there's any truth to that? Or are people just searching for answers similar to what we were talking about before? Has his absence been felt in a noticeable way from the fans and maybe from your keeping your pulse on the team over there?
Absolutely. I think Ron Washington and Eric Young being gone from the team has really put a damper on the attitude that this team had, because, I mean, you could see Wash out there every day just either cutting up with the guys or making sure they get their infield work in or firing them up. Like, Ron Washington has just always had that personality about him, even when he was, managing the Texas Rangers to back-to-back, World Series appearances. The guy is just an electric factory. I think that, and it's a different circumstance, I feel like, and, being a Yankee fan, you might disagree with me on this, but I think Alex Verdugo has actually re-energized this fan base a little, or re-energized the players a little bit. Like, he's come in with a good attitude and really fired the guys up. I mean, he's not OPS and 700 right now, but it seems like he's just getting a hit whenever it's needed. Like, he had a double and a single today, the 2 RBIs. I mean, the dude, and wasn't able to watch the game because I was busy, but I was keeping up with it, and I can go ahead and tell you he was probably fired up, whenever he got on base. And I think he's doing a pretty good job of trying to replace some of that energy, because Matt Olson, Austin Riley, those are just not those guys. They're not going to be the ones that are going to be rah-rah all the time, getting fired up. Marcell Ozuna, he's not really the fired up type. He's more of the laid back, jolly kind of guy. And then Ozzy Albies, he's kind of the same way as Marcel. Like, he doesn't get super energized or fired up or anything. He just kind of, cuts up with the guys, obviously, but he's not going to go out and get in your face and scream or do any of that kind of stuff.
To speak on Doogie for a sec, watching him play for the season with the Yanks last year, he got a lot of, in my opinion, unwarranted hate from Yankee Twitter and conversations. I love watching him play. He did rub people the wrong way with the way he plays the game, but you mentioned he's a lightning rod. If he's on your team and he's playing well, there are spurts in that World Series where he was one of the players you're relying and made a couple good catches. You turn that World Series and maybe he goes in a different direction. You remember that Verdugo catch that he made forever. And unfortunately, it went the wrong way for the Yanks and they wound up losing in embarrassing fashion. But Verdugo had his moments last year, and I was shocked to see him not finding anywhere to play baseball because we know he can do it at a high level in spurts. He does slump, but what you're seeing is kind of what we saw last year. He can be a lightning rod and drive the team forward with energy.
Oh yeah, and like I said, I mean, the Braves lost today, so ultimately it doesn't mean as much. But just the fact that he was there and you know basically helped the Braves score 2 or 3 runs today, regardless, is still a step in the right direction. Because earlier in the season, I mean, we got shut out like 3 games in a row. I feel like, it was either 2 or 3. Went on a really long scoreless streak, and it just seemed like the entire team was dead. I'm not saying the guys don't care because obviously it was the first week of the season, but seeing somebody come in and like actually get fired up and rah ready to go, that's awesome. That's what this team really needed to get going. And unfortunately, going back to the original question, Ron Washington and Eric Young leaving kind of left a hole in the team that, Doogie has kind of stepped in and filled quite nicely so far.
I think there is something to be said for that. Even the most talented teams, they need a player or two like that. That's just that bringing the vibes kind of. I mean, Jose Iglesias, as a Met fan, I can say, we had a very talented team last year. That season turned around pretty much directly when they called him up from AAA. And Jose Iglesias is not coming up and hitting 30 home runs for your squad. He's going to play really good defense. He's going to keep the vibes high. And like something just clicked. There was a lot of weird stuff that happened in the Met season last year. But I mean, even Nick Castellanos came out in the offseason and said he thought that Iglesias should be the MVP just on how the Mets changed, which a lot of people laughed at. But like, I understand where he's going. Even the Dodgers have all the talent in the world. But who's the guy that ends up being electric sometimes? Kike Hernandez, who's like, maybe the least talented in the dugout out of that bunch. So I do think there's something to be said for a guy like Verdugo, even if the numbers don't jump off the page.
Devin, real quick about the Verdugo, though. Ben, I got a question for you because obviously you were watching the Braves then with Nick Swisher. A lot of comparisons here in New York was Swisher and Verdugo. Did you get that vibe when you watch Swisher? Now you're watching Verdugo?
In a sense, yeah. I feel like so far Verdugo has been kind of more intense, if I say so. Nick Swisher always seemed kind of like a prankster, joking around. Like, he even played for the Braves for a little bit too. So like, just the sense that Nick Swisher just seemed like the guy who would give you a hug and like punch you in the chest and be like, "Let's go," fired up. And Doogie just seems like the kind of guy who would fire you up, but maybe not necessarily in like the best friend, best pal type of way that Nick Swisher did. But I mean, I can see the similarities for sure. Both of them just seem like great clubhouse presences.
Yeah, and for fans over here in New York, they became polarizing for whatever reason. I mean, there's certain fans, as you guys probably know from far away, like Yankee fans, especially with the facial hair rule coming back, and like there's traditionalists out there that judge players on some weird scale, and Verdugo and Nick Swisher, players like that, don't usually fall into this neat little Derek Jeter box that Yankee fans want to hold everybody to. But that's a completely different diatribe for a different time.
Hey, Nick Swisher also helped out by hitting 30 bombs a year. So I mean, that
I'll be thankful for 2009 for the rest of my life, man. He had a great season that year.
Ben, let's look at the division a little bit. I know you kind of alluded to it before, how the Mets have jumped out front here, but I mean, they just came off this weekend having 2 really rough last-second losses or walk-off losses to the Nationals. Both of them kind of ugly, shouldn't have happened. So, like, they're showing some cracks here. They definitely have their imperfections. The Phillies, on paper, look great, but they've shown some lumps as well here. And the Braves, meanwhile, have gotten a little hot. Marlins have played better baseball than anyone really thought. Who knows how long it holds up. The Nationals, we know they have a lot of talent coming. Like, their day is coming soon. If you flash forward to September, as honestly as you can, What do you expect to see in the standings? A 3-team race with the teams we expected. How do you see it when we get to September?
I'm gonna try to keep it as unbiased as possible. I personally see that I don't trust the Mets pitching. The Mets have one of the best pitching staffs in baseball statistically right now as we speak, but I truly cannot foresee that being the case come September. The Phillies, Aaron Nola hasn't looked good at all. He's been getting hit around. I think he pitched really well today. I think he was pitching tonight on Sunday Night Baseball, but um the Phillies, they're struggling a little bit. They're like a game under 500 if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they're hovering.
And then the Braves obviously are a couple games under 500 right now, but they're still staying hot. The like you said, the Mets, I mean not the Mets, the Marlins and the Nationals, those are sneaky teams, man. The Marlins have a top 5 offense in baseball statistically right now, and who saw that coming? Like nobody. And the Nationals are just fun to watch. I mean, James Wood, Dylan Cruz, they're so good, and Mackenzie Gore. Come September, man. Gosh, I do think the Braves are fighting with the Phils for a wild card spot. I think the Mets go out at the trade deadline and try to pick up, a couple relievers, and I think that the offense really comes together because the Mets have a dangerous offense. Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo, Juan Soto. I just can't imagine a league where they're not at the deadline trying their best to get a reliever or two to help out that bullpen. And hell, Clay Holmes has looked all right. So I mean, the starting rotation is not the worst. No, I think the Mets do hold on for a while at least, and then it becomes a 2-horse race for that wild card spot.
Yeah, your point is well taken. Like, to be honest, I think what happened to the Braves in the beginning of the season, every other team in this division and in baseball is going to have the same type of stretch. It's just not going to be right in the beginning of the season, so it might not be seen as such a big deal. But they're probably going to go on a 5-game losing streak at some point, 6, maybe 7. And your point about the Mets pitching, I mean, you're right. When you look at these names, you're like, how are they doing this? We're still on the fence of whether it is, it's the new Mets pitching lab that is only a couple years old under Steve Cohen, or if these guys are just pitching over their head. The offense, what makes me optimistic on that side is that we haven't gotten as much of Juan Soto as we expect. Hopefully he can turn it on because Pete Alonso is going to slump at some point. Francisco Lindor is going to slump at some point. Nimmo's been slumping. So like these guys need to pick each other up. Kind of like you said, you don't want a bunch of stars slumping at the same time because that's when you go on a losing streak. The Phillies, Steve and I talked about before the season how we almost feel like this might be their last stand with this core because there's a couple guys, Real Muto, I believe Schwarber on the last year of their deal. So I wonder if they don't get as far as they want to because they've kind of been going backwards the last few years after surprisingly getting to the World Series a few years ago. I wonder if part of it's blown up a little bit, but that pitching staff is just unbelievable when it's healthy 1 through 5. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like, I think everybody's guess is kind of equal because it's a long season. We're barely into it. Those 3 teams are really good, but maybe how they play against the Marlins and the Nationals ends up determining who wins that division. Because, I mean, Steve's pointed out the Mets used to get killed by the Marlins every year, and it would hurt them every single year. So that always looms large in my head.
Dude, I always remember that Glavine start where it was like the
last. Oh, don't remind me.
I'm just saying it was Glavine for the Mets against the Marlins. Yeah. And you felt like he was going to pull the jersey off like Hulk Hogan, like he's wearing a Braves jersey.
Right. I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist, but there was a part of me. I had to watch that game on like the ESPN feed of like, not on TV because I was working some random college job at the time.
Week 1 of the NFL
and I'm watching it.
Yeah,
I'm watching it and just seeing the runs go up and the outs just stay there. And that was my first thought. I'm like, Glavine was sent here by the Braves. He was sent to New York as a Brave.
Hey, well, back then, I mean, the Marlins had another dangerous offense. They had to have had Hanley and Miggy and gosh, who else? Gabby Sanchez, and I mean some
Gabby
boppers
Sanchez.
there. They
Dude,
had
that
some
was the
boppers.
team. That was the team. Jose Reyes woke up from the dead and pissed off. Like he became bulletin board material from dancing. Didn't you? I mean, this was years ago at this point, but
And then he went
the
and
Marlins
played
got
for them.
fired up. They had nothing to play for, and Jose Reyes woke them up, and the Marlins came in and just beat their ass to send them home packing, which was crazy. But you mentioned the trade deadline, Ben. We sit here April 27th. What do you see as the biggest need moving forward for the Braves? Do you trust Alex Anthopoulos to go out there and make the kind of moves that can really give this team the best shot of winning it all eventually?
I trust Alex Anthopoulos. I don't trust the ownership, Liberty Media. I think that personally, I think that they've kind of tied AA's hands as far as what he can do and how much payroll he can add, which I think is ridiculous considering you're hosting the All-Star break this year. With the amount of money that's going to bring in revenue-wise to the Braves themselves, I don't see a world where you don't go out and try to sign as many guys as possible to try to get your players to the All-Star game that you are hosting. Like, people are going to show up in uh, just masses to go see Austin Riley and Matt Olson and Marcell Ozuna, if those guys get elected to the All-Star game. But if you wanted, somebody else to go, like, I'm sorry, but Dylan Lee is not going to the All-Star game. As good as he might be in his relief appearances, like, that's just not a name that fans are going to vote for, relief pitcher wise. And with the way Raisel Iglesias is going, they're not going to vote for him either because of the homers that he's given up, which I don't think is necessarily all his fault, but his usage has gone way up from where it should be. But anyway, I think the Braves' biggest area of need is the bullpen. Like, they should upgrade that. I think they should have done it in the offseason, but hindsight's 2020.
Do you feel like they have enough in the system as far as the minor leagues prospects to go get a big piece at the deadline? Or do you think, because here's the thing, as far as, like, we know our own squads and our prospects, but for other teams, we often look at like the top 100 or how they rank the systems. But me as a Met fan, like, I know of some guys that a lot of people don't know of that I'm excited about. It's not on a top 100 list yet. I'm sure as a Braves fan, there's some people down there that maybe you guys know about that the casual fan or the fan up here in New York hasn't heard about yet. Do you feel like there's enough in the system to use as leverage in a trade scenario to get a difference maker?
It's hard to say because I don't want to come across as biased. I like to think that some of our prospects are very good. I know Owen Carey and John Heel in Single A are both 18 years old, and they're both absolutely crushing the ball. I don't have the stats for them right off the top of my head, but I know Owen Carey is hitting over 300, and over 1,000 OPS last I saw. As an 18-year-old, in his first taste of professional ball, which is really, really good. Some of the pitching they have, Blake Burkhalter is somebody who's really one to keep an eye on as far as starting pitching goes. Drew Hackenberg, who has kind of had a slow start of the year, but is a really, really good player. AJ Smith-Shawver is still a guy they got, which I don't see them trading him just because of how high the organization looks at him. But you also have Hurston Waldrop and J.R. Ritchie, Owen Murphy, like some of these guys starting pitcher wise. I mean, the system is loaded as far as starting pitching talent goes. So they might be able to afford to move, 2 or 3 of those guys who can be real difference makers, but they're going to have to do some selling and talking wise to try to get a big difference maker at the deadline.
So, Ben, you've given us a lot of time. We usually like to get our guests out of here, put them on the spot a little bit with the Mount Rushmore question that everyone seems to ask. We try to make it relevant to the guest that we have on. So, obviously, with you, we're going to have you go Mount Rushmore, 4 faces up there in Atlanta Braves history. And this doesn't have to be by the book. This is your Mount Rushmore. I'm sure you have your reasons for it. So give yourself a minute to think about it. Who would you put up there for Atlanta Braves history if you could only put 4?
Oh, brother. Gotta go Henry Aaron, man. Hank is just an all-time franchise icon. Like, if you leave him off of your Mount Rushmore, then you are just doing it wrong. Um, I'd put Chipper up there just for his, lifetime Brave status, 19 years, 460 something homers. One of the best switch hitters of all time. Only one ever to have a 300, 400, 500 slash line. And then, so we got Hank Aaron, Chipper Jones, number 3, Greg Maddux, just for the years that he put with the Braves. Like, honestly, some of the best pitching that the Braves have ever seen. And then 4 is tough. 4 is really tough because there's nobody that really is just, in my head, a slam dunk for that, because you got Freddie, who left to go to the Dodgers. You got somebody like Eddie Matthews, but nobody really knows. People know about Eddie Matthews, but he's not like, oh my God, Gosh, that's tough. I guess if I just had to pick a 4th, it would have to be Freddie in my head. Just for the years of service, and he brought a World Series to the city of Atlanta. Franchise icon, stuck with us through the rebuild. I guess that's my 4: Hank Aaron, Chipper, Greg, and Freddie Freeman.
I mean,
Freddie
Chipper.
Story, dude. We'll go with Chipper first.
Well, I was just gonna say Chipper. I feel like he had maybe about 400 of those home runs against the Mets. At least that's what it felt like as a Met fan growing up, watching him
named
and
his
the
kid
Braves
Shea
just
after all that.
break our heart. Yeah. We had the Larry chance. We tried, but it just never really worked. He just fed off of them. It was incredible.
Just fueled his bat, which was crazy to me.
Unbelievable.
The fact that he hit so well at Shea Stadium, he literally named one of his kids Shea, is just insane. That's just like
brutal.
a big middle finger to Mets fans everywhere.
I will say, since he's been retired, he's like been really friendly with like Mets fans and like bantering back and forth with them. It's like a very weird relationship. I don't know if it's healthy or not, but like he's a guy I look at and I revere and I like him. But growing up, it just like despise is not even the word, because he would kill us. He'd break our heart every single night.
It's not the same level, but it's like Reggie Miller with the Knicks now. Like Reggie didn't dominate the Knicks the same way. I feel like they had that one series. If you look at Reggie's numbers against the Knicks, it really isn't that crazy. That's a whole different story. But Reggie now is almost like courteous to Knicks fans at MSG when he shows up there. It is bizarre because it's just like a respect you just earn from hating each other all these years.
Yeah, but last year they were literally chanting "F you, Reggie" in MSG when he was announcing one of the playoff games, like just like up in his face as close as they could get. So some of that respect wore off once it was in a playoff atmosphere. It was against the Pacers, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Freddie pick, by the way, Ben, like there's the stories that we all heard on and I'm curious your perspective of this. Obviously, it's not as recent as we would like to discuss it, but what were your opinion on that? Where like Freddie didn't receive the offer from his agent, that he wanted to stay with the Braves. We felt like the Braves didn't want him there. Going back in time and looking at that, that'd be a heartbreaking situation to hear about all that after the fact. And Freddie could still be a Brave as we speak.
Dude, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I hate that the situation happened, but I really don't know who to believe or what to believe in this situation. There were so many different stories. Like you said, there was a story where, his agent didn't give him the offer. There's been stories where the Braves didn't even offer him, or that he turned down an offer for the Braves. And it's like, there's just so much hearsay as to what happened in that situation. Like, and at the end of the day, if he wanted to be an Atlanta Brave, he would still be an Atlanta Brave. The people who, and I hate to turn this back on Matt Olson, but the people who hate Matt Olson because he's not Freddie Freeman is just ridiculous, in my opinion. The dude has, put up the most home runs and RBIs of any first baseman since he came to Atlanta. And, if the Braves were going to replace Freddie Freeman with anybody, like, that's the guy. There's not, in my opinion, there's not a better first baseman in baseball. Maybe Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and which I guess, not saying it out loud, kind of sounds dumb. Vladdy is definitely better than Matt Olson, but Matty's still up there.
Yeah, look at the numbers. I mean, they're closer than people would probably imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
So being that you're in the Atlanta area, I just have to ask, obviously the NFL draft is gone. Are you an NFL guy at all?
Yeah, I'm a Jags fan.
Okay, but so are you in the Atlanta area? So you're consuming Atlanta radio and all that stuff that's in your area?
Yeah, I'm about an hour outside of Atlanta.
So what is the pulse on this stuff with Jeff Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator of the Falcons, where like Shador Sanders got prank called by his son? Like this is blowing up national media wise. I can imagine it's a big deal in the Atlanta area because this is becoming something bigger than just prank calling Shador Sanders. It's craziness.
It's kids being stupid kids. Like they don't understand there's consequences to this type of thing, which they should. Because if I'm not mistaken, the kid is in college, right? Like
Yeah,
he,
I think he
yeah.
plays for Ole Miss, I believe. I think that's what he
yeah.
does. I can get his name, but he apologized publicly, called Shador and everything, but the video went viral. I mean, it is what it is. I think we had last year, someone got pranked as well, but they took it in stride. It wasn't a big deal because they didn't fall in the draft. It wasn't this embarrassing go from day 1 to day 3 situation.
Yeah, I think that it's just a dumb thing that the kid did. Like at the end of the day, no harm, no foul. But like, God, it's just such a bad look. Like you got to know better than one to do that, but two, if you're gonna be stupid, don't video it and put it on Twitter. Like you got to realize how dumb that sounds, man. I mean, I guess anything for the clicks, but like, and don't take this the wrong way. I stand by it. Don't do it in the first place. But if you do want to do it, don't videotape it.
So being that you're a Jags fan, we have to ask about Travis Hunter, them trading up to get him. The version of Shohei Ohtani, the closest thing we have to it, this dude plays 2 positions. What's your take on it? Are we going to have him playing wide receiver and a cornerback? He's going to play both sides of the ball, or are they eventually just going to put him to be Trevor Lawrence's well-needed weapon over there?
From everything that I've seen, they're gonna start him out at wide receiver, and they're gonna let him, get acclimated with the offense, and then they're gonna work him in with the DBs later on in the season, which is cool with me. Like I'm perfectly fine with that. Let the guy get acclimated to the NFL because the NFL is just another monster. I mean, you got the best of the best from high school going to college, and then you got the best of the best from college going to the NFL. So let him get his bearings under him. Let him get his feet wet, and then work him into it. I personally am ecstatic that they got Travis Hunter. He's the best player in the draft. So they gave up a lot, yes, but I'm pretty sure the Falcons gave up like very close to the same exact package for like the number 26 pick or something. So people saying that the Jags overpaid and this, that, the other, like who cares, man? We don't know if they overpaid, and we don't know if they underpaid. It's going to take at least 2 seasons, 3 seasons to really understand the ins and outs of this deal.
How quickly did you pre-order that jersey? I mean, it had to be it's on the way right now, right?
Man, I have not ordered the jersey yet. I still got a Christian Kirk jersey in there and a Blake Bortles jersey. So
Bortles.
My NFL jerseys are bad luck.
I hear you. I'm a Packers fan, so I was ecstatic. We got Matthew Golden. First time I took a wide receiver in the draft since 2002, Javon Walker. So 23 years. And to do it in Green Bay, that was as pro wrestling as
cool.
it gets, him coming out.
Yeah.
That was amazing. So, but we're going to give you the platform here, Ben. Oh, you have more about the NFL. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say the fact that Green Bay has become like quarterback central with Favre and Rodgers and Love and like all those guys, and they haven't taken a wide receiver in the first round in 23 years is just like criminal.
Oh yeah, he immediately became the highest paid. Him being Matthew Golden is the highest paid wide receiver in the room just by being where he was drafted. He's $4.5 million this year. Everybody else is making just under 2, which is wild.
That's crazy.
But dude, it's been a pleasure having you on here. We're gonna give you the platform here to talk about Skipper's View, Tomahawk Talk, where they can find you on Twitter and anything else you have going on that you want all of our listeners to know.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks again for having me on, guys. I really appreciated it. It's been fun. And if you guys want to follow the Skipper's View, you can go on there and just type in the Skipper's View, and you can find, articles and all the guys who are involved in the Skipper's View. I know there's at least 15 of us, so it's a big group. I would shout out everybody individually, but it'd take forever. They're great guys, honestly, really good content. They know their ball. Like if you're into numbers and if you're into analytics and things of that nature, give them a follow. And then as far as Tomahawk Talk, follow us. We're on all platforms: Apple, Spotify, YouTube. And then you can just follow at Tomahawk Talk 2 on X. And we got Jeb Mays and Disgusting Braves Homer and Michael Harris 2's Headband all on Twitter. Follow us, give us a listen. If it's not your cup of tea, fine. If it is, we'll welcome new listeners all day, every day. So thanks, guys. Again, I really appreciate y'all, sitting down and talking to me for an hour.
Absolutely, man. We appreciate you, and you're always welcome on here. We'll talk about the Braves when they maybe get to the trade deadline or have another conversation when something meaningful happens for us.
Or when they beat the Mets in the NLCS and then go beat the Yankees.
Let's
in the
go,
World Series.
Ben. Let's go.
If that happens, Steve will host you. I'm not going to come on that one. I'm going to be a little bit under the weather at that point.
Well, I mean, we can have spent the whole hour just talking about just the domination the Braves had in the NL East for how many Devin's whole childhood. It was the
I'd rather
Yankees and the
not.
Braves. It was the two of us. We were dominating and traumatizing young Devin.
Yeah, well, the Yankees got the best of the Braves in a couple of those World Series in the '90s but that was before I was born, so I'm not even really worried about it.
They were formidable moments in my life, 96 and 99. I'll forever remember those moments. Those 90s Yankees teams made me the man who I am today. But it's a conversation we could talk about another time. We'll be back in 1 second to wrap up the episode. Okay, we want to thank Ben Weaver again for joining us here, talking all things Atlanta Braves. And we've been waiting to have that conversation. As we mentioned at the top of the hour, it was the most appropriate time to have it. I mean, some of the drama has been dying down with the Acuña stuff and Snitker, but still getting his take of finger on the pulse of what's going on in Atlanta was very, very meaningful.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I feel like he's pretty modest about how they're doing, but let's be honest, man, they're trending in the right direction. I know they lost tonight, but they've been looking good. Offense is clicking. And like we kind of talked about in the episode, I think he called the relief pitching what they need help with. As an outsider, I just look at the starting pitching and wonder how they're going to get through the season. I mean, you look at I like to look for fantasy purposes, like sometimes 2, 3, 4 days ahead of who's starting certain games to see if there's anyone I want to try to stream before other people get them, And a lot of times in the Braves, you'll notice it says undecided a lot more than other teams. It happens for other teams too, especially if you're looking several days ahead. But the Strider stuff, him being out, you are relying on some people that you did not expect to, at least this early in the season, which we say time and time again. That is why these GMs go out and sometimes make signings that seem puzzling because they're going 7, 8 deep as far as starting pitching. But it's necessary in today's day and age.
Yeah, looking at the injuries of both sides of the ball at this point, I mean, it's a Murphy's Law type of season. You'd think the luck would go in the other direction eventually this year, but the pitching has to get right, and Strider is a huge part about what they're doing here. There's no doubt about it. Chris Sale has to get back to what he was last year, and you need Strider. A lot of those eggs are in that basket. And there is some confidence, of course, and they've righted the ship. I think once they got the bugaboo of getting their first win, it's been momentum-based in the other direction. But they have to find a way to keep their head down, let the drama go away, and just continue to win baseball games. Because as he mentioned too, and I know you don't want to jinx it, but the Mets right now are on an absolute heater, and you can't sustain another 7-game losing streak in this division and expect to be back in the race. The Braves right now are not dealing in any sort of wiggle room. They have to get out there and try to keep pace. And it's at any point, we know that anyone could slide and any team could have a losing streak, but it feels like the Mets right now are winning in big clumps. And at some point, this division could be a big distance from the Braves.
It could, but I don't know. I mean, there's been no part of me, even during the 0-7 start. Don't get me wrong. As a Met fan, I was enjoying that 0-7 start, but there was never a part of me that was like, oh, man, we got them. They're out of the picture. Again, I've just watched too many seasons of baseball, whether it be the Braves haunting us or the Phillies catching us when we had a 7-game lead with 17 games to go. Like, the casual fan will see a 7-game lead late in the season and just be like, oh, that division's over. And most of the time it is, but not always. Like I've been there. So especially, honestly, sometimes it's a blessing in disguise to have your worst part of the season in the beginning. I mean, the Mets did the same thing last year, starting out 0-5 and then also having an awful May, like just awful. It wasn't just the 0-5 start. So for the Braves, the fact that they're already kind of turning it around, they've still basically gotten nothing from Strider because he went right back on the IL. They've gotten nothing from Ronald Acuña yet. And a lot of their offense is staying healthy. Like, Austin Riley's healthy. Matt Olson, you want him to put up more numbers, but he's healthy. Albies, on and on and on. You're going to get Acuña back. And that's pretty nice all of a sudden to have Ronald Acuña injected into your lineup. And if he gets injected into that lineup when they're playing really good baseball, I still think the sky's the limit for the Atlanta Braves.
So as we wrap up this episode here, of course, we're always being followed at Tablesetters Pod on Instagram, on the X Machine. You can also use code TS10 at Dugout Mugs to save yourself 10% on a future order over there. Grab something over there. Great stuff. The Dugout Mugs have over there, again, code TS10. Devin, we have another episode coming this week with a guest, if you want to give everybody the information about it.
Yeah, so 12-year big leaguer Jack Wilson is most likely going to join us. I put the most likely in there because, schedules change, but we do have a rapport with Jack right now. So if it's not then on we're supposed to record on Wednesday night. If it's not then, I'm sure we'll be able to get something going with him at some point. Also, the father of Jacob Wilson, current Rookie of the Year candidate for the I almost said Oakland, but not Oakland Athletics. And he has some college coaching experience too. So there's a lot of ways we can take that conversation, a lot of directions we can go. I think it's going to be fascinating. I mean, obviously, we could spend an hour or two just talking about his own career, but I'm sure we'll want to ask him a couple questions about Jacob as well, and maybe about college ball a little bit too, and what he thinks about the current style of play in Major League Baseball, rule changes, and all those things. So that'll be a fun one, having a MLB vet on here with us. And at some point, we got to squeeze in a regular episode, just the two of us breaking down all the action. We'll figure that out. But we have a lot coming and a lot trying to figure out in the future here.
So that'll be dropping Thursday morning, where you can find all your audio platforms and on video as well. Of course, you guys can follow us on YouTube as well at Tablesetters Baseball. Episodes dropping at the very least once a week, as Devin mentioned, but sometimes we're dropping as many as 3 to 4 if things go the right way and we can fit it in our schedule. So come join the platform here. 79 episodes deep. We're looking to eclipse 100 very, very soon, and we're well on our way. This is our second season doing this, so we appreciate all the support, all the 5-star reviews, everybody that's joined along for this ride. Baseball's fun, and we want to tell everybody about it.
Hell yeah, man, and we're going to keep it going for sure. So no plans on stopping anytime soon.
So before we go, Devin, we talked about the NFL draft with Ben. Any thoughts on Jackson Dart, stuff going on with the Giants? You feeling good about what happened over there this weekend?
Yeah, I like what they did a lot. I'm adding Abdul Carter to an already talented defensive front. Obviously everyone makes comparisons to the 2 Super Bowl teams because the D-line was great then. I love Cam Scatterbo. I watched a lot of him at Arizona State. This guy is unbelievable. We'll see if it translates to the NFL, but he's a gamer. And the Jackson Dart thing, I like the player. I like the attitude. I like the personality. We'll see. Again, does it translate to the NFL game? I'm not going to sit here and make any guarantees, but I like the talent they drafted. It's exciting. And I still worry a little bit about what I've worried about for a long time, and that's the offensive line. But in other places, we're looking pretty decent. So I just want to see them take a step in the right direction this year. If I could just see that. I don't need them to be a playoff team right away, but if we can just see some hope, I think that'd be nice.
I mean, give some credit to Brian Dable with that report coming out with the meeting with Shedeur Sanders, where I think Shedeur came up unprepared and disrespectful, and Dable didn't take it well, and that was the reason the Giants. But yeah, good for Dable. I mean, he has a culture that he needs to uphold, and I think obviously this carousel of coaches and front office, and it's easy just to shed that layer every single year when you're losing, but there needs to be consistency. And even from the outside looking in, there's something contagious about Brian Dable. You want to play for the dude. And I think he's the guy, and you have to have the patience. And I'm glad the Giants didn't decide, because there were rumblings, people get rid of him. And it's at some point you have to plant your roots somewhere, and you have to be able to have these coaches weather storms, and you have to build a culture. You cannot, every time you fire a coach, move on and start anew. You can't, you're restarting the clock.
Yeah, I think most Giant fans see Joe Shane in the front office as the weak link there. Now, obviously, he's a part of this draft, and if this draft class shows some promise, who knows? And I think it's very calculated for them to bring in 2 vets, because I think for the most part, the guys that get to sit a little while tend to do better, because so many of these guys that get put in before they're ready just seem to be crushed before their career even starts, and they never rebound. So hopefully, again, let's not worry too much about record. hopefully Russell Wilson and or Jameis Winston can at least prove the concept that is Brian Dable's offense to a degree, where ownership can look and be like, okay, I can see it's going to work. We just need the right person back there, because I don't know if we ever got to see that with the quarterbacks we've had the last few years playing back there. Like, is this actually an effective system, or do we go somewhere else? So it'll be an interesting season in New York for sure.
Definitely. And again, if you guys want to follow us on social media at Tablesetters Pod on both the X Machine and Instagram, Devin running the X Machine, interacting. Most of the conversation happens over there. Get us above 2.5 thousand followers over there. I think we're like floating somewhere at 2.1. Join the conversation.
Around there.
Yeah, have some fun talking some baseball. We'll be back later this week talking with former Major League player Jack Wilson with another episode this week as well. But we'll then talk to you after a while.